Let us do a quick recap of the reading number 1 that we have studied. We have seen that what are the different type of markets. There are factor markets which deal with the factor of production like land, labor, capital and the raw materials. Then you have a goods market which is the output or the finished goods or services. Okay, note that there can be intermediary also. So there can be a concept of intermediate market. Right. Now we have seen the demand function. Okay, what is the quantity demanded? Quantity demanded is dependent on many factors. We can take as an example of its own price, the income level and prices of the other products. So we can express the quantity demanded function as a function of price, income and the prices of other product. So this is, we took an example of only one substitute product. We took example of coffee. We are saying that was the quantity demanded of tea. It will look like it is a price of tea, negatively related with the price of tea, positively related with the income level and positively related with the price of the coffee. Now mostly what we are interested in, we are interested in the quantity demanded with respect to the price of tea. We do not want income and coffee to be coming. So what we say is, we can say that quantity demanded versus price of tea, assuming these two are constant, assuming income and coffee prices are constant. So we can substitute these values and we can get the quantity demanded of tea versus the price of the tea. So you have a demand of tea as a function of only the price of tea, right? Note that in case of the plotting of the demand function, we plot it like this: price versus the quantity. Your price is the y-axis and the quantity is the x-axis. Earlier we have done quantity as a function of price. This is not the correct mapping. So what we have to do is, we have to get the price as a function of quantity. This is called as your inverse demand function. It is useful to plot, it is useful in plotting the values on the graph. So this is your demand curve. So the demand curve, you will find it is downward sloping. Why it is downward sloping? Because as the price is increasing, the quantity demanded is decreasing, or as I can say, as the price is decreasing, the quantity demanded is increasing. So it's a downward sloping demand curve, right? Note that we have seen that if the price of the product changes, then we find that there is a movement along the demand curve. So there is a movement along the demand curve when its own price changes, but there is a change in the demand curve. There is a shift when the income level changes or the price of substitute or complementary product changes. So what we have is, if this is the old demand curve, so this at 300 you are buying this quantity, when the price is decreasing you are buying more quantity. So this is, you are moving from this to this point to this point. It is your movement along the curve. But when you increase the income, you will find that the quantity demanded is increasing. You will find that there is a shift. Similarly, like your demand function, we also have the supply function. But note that the supply of any product, it depends on the price of the product and also the cost. So what we can do is, we can get a supply as a function of the price and as a function of cost of the various items. So assuming we have only one factor and that cost, that is your wage. So we can say quantity supplied of X is a function of its own price and the wages. So this is how we can write the quantity supplied. But again, what I want is, I want the quantity in terms of the price of the tea. So what we do is, we fix this wage level and we get the quantity supplied as a function of price. So we have, if you fix the wage at $15, so this is your quantity supplied as a function of price. Okay. Also we can get the inverse supply function, because the plot is on the price versus the quantity. So we can inverse the supply function. So this is your supply curve. Note that the supply curve is upward sloping. That is, as the price is increasing, okay, you find that people are supplying more and more quantity. See 0.6, you are supplying this quantity, 0.8 you are supplying this quantity, that is the quantity supplied is increasing, right? So again we have seen that there is a movement along the supply curve and there is a change in the, or the shift in the supply curve. Movement in the supply curve will happen when the price changes. When the price of tea changes, you will find that movement. When the wage level changes, you will find that there is a shift, right? So we have, this is the shift. So here it's a left shift. We say that the supply decreases. Why? Because the wage level has increased, right? So if you see why we call a supply decreases. So if the price is 0.8, earlier you were supplying 200 quantity, now you are supplying only 50 quantity. Why? Because the cost have increased, you want higher price. Now movement along the curve, so this is the price and then this is the price, higher price, you are moving from one point to other. So you can understand the movement and also the shift. Okay, right? So we have seen the shift. So why shift will happen? When the change in the income or change in the price of the substitute or the price of the complementary good, if it is changing, you will find that the demand curve will shift. Similarly, you observe the changes in the shift in the supply curve. It happens because of the changes in the wage level, raw material prices, increase in rents, etc. It will decrease or increase. So see, this is your decrease, left is your decrease, your right is your increase in the supply. Similarly, demand curve, when you shift in the right side, the demand increases. When you shift in the left side, the demand decreases. So left side shift is decrease in both supply and demand. Right? Then we can aggregate the demand curve. We have taken only one consumer earlier and one firm. What we can do is we can combine many consumers, many firms, and we can get the aggregate demand and supply curve for the market. So these are your aggregate supply curve and demand curve. Now what we can do is we can get the concept of market equilibrium. What is the market equilibrium? When the quantity demanded is equal to the quantity supplied, that is called as the market equilibrium. So you will find that there will be constant interaction between the buyers and the sellers, and they will agree on one price that will become equal to equilibrium price, and the quantity sold at that price will be your equilibrium quantity. So this is what is your market equilibrium. This is your market demand, this is your market supply. Here the demand and supply curve is matching. So this is your equilibrium price, this is your equilibrium quantity. Right? Note that demand is also called as your marginal benefit. Okay, and we introduce this concept. We are saying that this part is called as your consumer surplus. Why? Because the benefit that you are getting is more than the cost you are paying. So here, this is the, let's say you are selling this quantity, you are paying this price, you are getting this benefit. So this is the surplus. So this is your consumer surplus. So this area will be your consumer surplus, this area will be your producer surplus. So the point, if you are getting the surplus, you will keep on producing. The moment your surplus becomes negative, see, the benefit is lower than the price you are paying, so you will not consume. So you will not consume any quantity beyond the equilibrium quantity. So if this is the price equilibrium, if the price is 1 per kg, what will happen is there will be excess demand, there will be less supply. So when the price is below the equilibrium level, you will see excess demand. Whereas if the price is $2 per kg, you will find that the demand is this and the supply is this. That means the supply is more than the quantity demanded. So if the price is more than the equilibrium, quantity supplied is greater than the quantity demanded. Right? So we have seen that these are the various demand and supply function. We have seen how to compute the excess demand and excess supply. Okay. We have seen the concept of surplus, producer surplus, consumer surplus, and the summation of the producer and consumer surplus is called as your total surplus. Okay. So you can easily compute the surplus when the demand function and the supply function is given to you. Right. Then we introduce the concept of elasticity. Elasticity is your sensitivity. Okay. With respect to three things we have seen: own price, income, and also the cross price, that is the price of a substitute product or a complementary product. Note that for a normal good, own price elasticity is negative, because as the price is increasing, the quantity demanded is decreasing. Right? So these are the complex formulas that you have, but the idea is very basic, that when the price is increasing, the quantity demanded is decreasing. Right? When the income level increases, the quantity demanded of normal good it increases, but quantity demanded for inferior goods it decreases. Okay. When the price of substitute product it increases, the quantity demanded of the product will increase, but if the price of complementary product it increases, the quantity will decrease. So these are your concepts of elasticity. We also brought the concept of elastic. When elastic, we say that when the elasticity is greater than 1, we say that inelastic when elasticity is less than 1, unitary elastic is elastic equal to 1, perfectly elastic when elasticity is equal to infinity, and perfectly inelastic is when elasticity is equal to 0. So when you find that this is your perfectly inelastic curve. This you find is perfectly elastic. Otherwise you find that this is your demand curve. Depends on the point to point. Depending on the point you are, elasticity may be equal to 1, greater than 1 or less than 1. So elasticity is not constant across the curve, it changes. Then we saw the total expenditure impact. We saw that if your price, if your elasticity absolute value is less than 1, if you increase the price, you are going to increase the revenue, right? So it is beneficial to increase the price, but when the elasticity is greater than 1, increase in the price, it decreases the revenue, and the revenue remains constant at your unitary elasticity level when the elasticity is equal to 1. So this completes your reading number 1.